Asian Law Caucus from 1979 to 1988. First, I want to extend my sympathies and condolences to Sue, Gary, and Dennis and your families, and also to your mom, Judy Sakaki, who I haven't seen for many years, and she's here. As Peggy said, we were idealistic in 1979, 1980. I first met Mike actually in 1976 when I clerked with Ed Lee, Margaret Fung, and some other people, their first-year law students, and I eventually met Mike through the caucus. But Mike and I bonded very early on. We were political animals. We loved to study leftist politics and understood how does the Asian Law Caucus fit within this revolutionary trend engulfing the world, from Central America to the Philippines, all these kinds of things going on. And we thought in this big picture, and we say, well, how do we make the Asian Law Caucus politically relevant and meaningful to these communities during all this political turmoil? And what we dealt with were many of the same issues we have to deal with today. Immigration rates, thousands of people coming over from Central America, the Philippines, fleeing persecution. And then in Chinatown, same issues. Evictions, garment workers being prosecuted because of so-called wage issues, fighting for the minimum wage, increased minimum wage for garment workers. And then Mike also spearheading, as Peggy said, our work around anti-Asian violence. And also he spearheaded our work against English-only propositions here in California. If I could summarize, my relationship with Mike during those years at the caucus is he was my political soulmate. We debated everything. We talked about everything. And Peggy talks about our organization. Mike was a lawyer, but really what he was for the organization is he was this person who wanted to make sure the process was fair, that everybody was heard, that we could debate issues and understand their impact legally, their impact on the community, and its consistency with our political beliefs. That's very hard to do. And the result of having all those discussions are you never reach finality of decision. So what a bad combination. Lawyers who love to talk and political activists who think they know everything too. But Mike and I also bonded on a very personal level. Here we were, young lawyers trying to find our footings. You know, he was starting his family. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going on. And so we became very close best friends. Very personally tight on a lot of levels. And he was so tight and very close. He was my best man at my wedding 30 years ago. The hard thing is 30 years ago, but Mike was really a great help for me to get through this major transition of life of, oh my God, I'm giving up my place. I'm moving in. Oh my God, Mike, I don't know about this, Mike. This is like, oh my God, because you can do it alone, don't worry. And although we kind of parted over the years as I went off to work at the EEOC and we went off working with other organizations, I always knew every time I would see him that we were still close. He would always say, hey Mano, are you still a young man? Right? And we could always laugh. It's like, and of course, Mike never changed on how he looked, right? He looked the same way he did 40 years ago. He finally got a part in his hair before. He used to have that, you know, Mo Howard haircut. Okay, for those of you who are a little young, Mo Howard was Three Stooges. But I want to end with the fact that, you know, it was so sudden for me. Like Peggy, I saw Mike at the Asian Law Caucus dinner, and we said, Mike, we've got to get together. He says, of course. He looked so good. He looked upbeat. And I had been writing to him. I said, like, I want to have you over, you and Sue over for dinner. He goes, yeah, let's set a date. We're proposing all these dates. And he says, look, I have to wait until after the bone marrow transplant. So we said, fine, we're going to do it. And then when I heard the news, it was like a shock. Because Debbie and I have been hoping so much to have this conversation that we haven't had over the years. And for that, I miss him. I miss his friendship. I miss his humor. and I miss his always making fun of me whenever he had a chance. But Mike was a great friend. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Vince Reyes. To Sue and the entire family, my condolences, sympathies. Love you guys so much. And thank you for including me. I guess as you can see, Mike had a great sense of humor. It was very irreverent sense of humor. I remember at Bill's bachelor party, we were talking about what is the best thing that could happen to Bill. And so Mike says, he's marrying up into Chinese. I just had to say that. I first met Mike in the 70s, believe it or not, when I could read 11-point font. He's at 16, so it's not as long as it was. We were both part of the broader Asian American movement. I was an activist in the KDP, and we would have sporadic contact with Mike, sometimes because of the intersection with the Asian Law Caucus, which Peggy was there, who we've known since we were actually teenagers, and because Mike and I have the same circle of progressive friends. But I really got to know Mike more consistently in the early 1990s when he was a staff member for one of the Alameda County supervisors, and I had a job with Alameda County to oversee multicultural access to county services. It was during this time that I was introduced to, and to my benefit, Mike's tremendous analytical abilities. He could slice and dice any political and community issue into detailed layers of complex diagnosis. But he didn't stop there. He would always play out multiple scenarios in detail and come up with matching tactics for addressing issues. It was a learning experience to be part of Mike's thought process. He was the only person I have known that made paralysis by analysis a fun exercise. I always enjoyed his sharp wit and his tremendous sense of humor. Mike had an incredible sense of humility and the desire to stay behind the scenes and not take any credit, even though to me it was his drive, determination, and analysis that was really leading the way in many of the initiatives that we worked on. It goes without saying, bottom line, Mike was a committed social justice activist and used his talents to create incremental system changes. There's so much I could say about that, and so much more that other people here will say, so I'll just focus on our work together on anti-hate violence. The early 1990s saw a spike in hate crimes in Alameda County. There were numerous attacks against African Americans, Latinos, and Asians. These included cross burnings, vandalism to synagogues, racist graffiti, and physical violence. In particular, vicious anti-Asian sentiment was spurred on by a right-wing Buy American campaign that targeted Asian-made goods that purportedly took jobs away from real Americans. I believe what spurred Mike into action was the 1989 mass shooting at Cleveland Elementary School in Stockton, where 5 Southeast Asian children were killed and 30 more were wounded by a gunman with an AK-47 assault rifle, who specifically targeted the children because of their race. It was Mike who saw we could leverage our positions in the county to organize both awareness and action to address the volatile climate of hate violence incidents. We systematically went to work. We got the Board of Supervisors to pass a resolution for the Multicultural Oversight Committee and Human Relations Commission, which we staffed respectively, to conduct a study to establish a countywide hate violence prevention plan. We then organized community and government meetings and focus groups for input. Then we wrote and published a plan, which was a program to promote awareness, education, training, and the creation of community networks to sustain grassroots community efforts, anti-hate efforts. The vehicle for that to happen was the green light from the Board of Supervisors for us to create the Alameda County Task Force on Anti-Hate Crime. We organized nonprofits, faith-based communities, police departments, schools, and elected officials into a broad coalition. We sponsored numerous community trainings and forums on how to report hate crimes, how to work with schools and law enforcement, We wrote dozens of press releases, supported ongoing efforts, and gave many interviews to the media. The plan became a statewide model for government response to hate crime. Then we formed a partnership with Alameda County Office of Education and produced a handbook for boards of education, district and school site staff that outlined hate crime prevention practices and how to respond to hate crimes. We were then contracted by the County Office of Education to design and provide training to schools. As a team, Mike and I conducted trainings for educators in over a dozen school districts all over California. We later published a hate violence resource directory and both independently participated on various statewide task force and commissions addressing hate violence. Through all of this, Mike did even more work with Intergroup Clearinghouse and was a founder of the Break the Silence Coalition that focused directly on hate violence against Asian Pacific Islanders. Needless to say, we spent a lot of hours together, became very good friends, designing and executing our plans. It goes without saying that Mike did a lot of the heavy lifting. If there was ever a time we need a person of Mike's caliber of commitment, it's now, and I know that we all feel that void. Mike and I have always kept in touch, and years later, we were able to work together again on some strategic planning contracts for nonprofit organizations. Here again, Mike's methodologies were the product of decades of experience and leadership. His judgment, conclusions, and plans set those organizations in the proper trajectory for success and sustainability. I'm proud to say Mike was my friend, and I had a front row seat to his talent, understanding, and commitment for the many ways to stand up for and create social change. To this day, I use Mike's methodology in my own work. Honestly, it is very difficult to do the organizational analytics that seem so second nature to Mike, but I'm grateful that he gave me the basics. Our last discussion over the phone as he was preparing for his bone marrow transplant was about, of all things, science. We had never tread this ground together, although I knew from our days of trivia contests that he was a science whiz. And it was uplifting to know we've read the same writers of astrophysics and quantum science. But even in the conversation about multiverses, Mike asserted that science contributed to the human penchant for hope, and he believed that we could all do better. The last words in that conversation to me were, think about what's important about your grandkids for me. Mike, I'll always miss you.
Sue, James, Gary, and family. Thank you for inviting me on Steve Suzuki. And thank you for having the band play today. It's an honor. It's very much an honor to be in front of you. I feel like I want to channel Mike a little bit because I've known him for many years, and it started actually at Break the Silence. And the concept of lives being in stages, circles, or layers of things. And so I'll use layers as my thing today. And I think the thing with Mike is he's a many-layered man. And I had the honor and privilege of peeling back some of those layers along the way. And there's definitely the work that he did.